So this is the start. This is the entrance.
Ben, well, welcome to Posthuman.
Thank you. It's great to be here, Jeffrey.
So this is a very important project for me.
Okay, yeah.
The original Posthuman was presented 32 years ago. It was immediately a sensation. So this show focuses on 3 generations.
Okay.
Artists who were in the original show: Charles Ray, Paul McCarthy, Mike Kelly, Kiki Smith, Jeff Koons, Ashley Bickerton. Then there's a second generation, artists associated with the 90s, but who actually weren't quite there yet with their work in 1992.
Yeah.
Surprisingly, Maurizio Cattelan, whose work I think was influenced by Posthuman.
Yeah.
Because he was in Italy at the time. And
Yeah.
Urs Fischer, who told me that before he spoke English as a high school student in Zurich, he would study the visual essays in my catalog.
Yeah,
That's the
wow.
whole point. You didn't need to read it. You just looked at the pictures.
Yeah.
And then Takashi Murakami, who
Yep.
I knew well in Tokyo in the early 90s, and showed him the Posthuman book.
Yeah.
And then we have a younger generation, really important artists now: Alex DeCourt, Josh Klein, among others. And both Alex and Josh, when I went to visit Alex in his studio in Philadelphia to ask him if he would participate in Posthuman, he said, I want to show you something. Comes out with a book from his library. He had the original vintage Posthuman catalog.
Wow.
And the same thing with Josh Klein.
Yeah.
So Josh had it in his library. He says, of course I know this book.
Yeah.
So for me, the show and the artists in it, the connections are very meaningful. So the show is very personal for me.
Yeah.
And even though I've done a lot of exhibitions,
Yeah.
Posthuman remains my most influential show. The word posthuman actually, or the term posthuman actually entered the language. And there's now a whole discipline of posthuman studies in universities.
Yeah.
And I was very pleased to see that Rosa Baidotti, who's known as the great scholar of posthumanism, acknowledged me in the show. It's a good example of what I've strived to do for a long time. To create exhibitions that are impactful enough that they actually enter into the wider culture.
Yeah.
They go beyond the inside art discourse.
Yeah.
So that's what happened with Posthuman.
Okay. As you're then reshaping it again anew as a curator or a gallerist, like, did you feel pressure of like?
Well, it was very important for us to get definitive top-level works of art. I wanted great works by these artists.
Yeah.
And for a number of the artists, we have their signature works.
Yeah.
Some of the best works they've ever done. It was really important to get great works. So, for instance, Murakami, this outrageous work is loaned by the Marciano collection.
Okay.
I just love this one. It's so crazy. It's so posthuman.
Yeah.
We had to have this.
I mean, we think of Murakami and there's so much work and styles that he has. What for you, what's the main hit of it?
First, I love how he's taken this to the extreme.
Yeah, right.
This is
true.
This is an example of an artist going all the way.
All the way.
It shows the connection of his work to Japanese manga.
Yeah.
And for that reason, I wanted to also show the work of Sorayama next to him, because Sorayama is now part of the art world discourse, but Sorayama began as more as a manga artist, and the art world drew him in. I find it very interesting just the way, say, Andy Warhol was influenced by pop culture and film and rock and roll. Murakami is very influenced by this Japanese manga culture and otaku culture.
I feel like that's been a big part of your work, bringing in artists and creatives that are maybe not part of the zeitgeist of the contemporary art scene.
I've always enjoyed this. So I approach art from a broader view.
Yeah.
So there's a very narrow view that you see in art university departments of a certain kind of serious fine art. But I'm much more open to all of visual culture.
Yeah.
And it's like I see artists talk about new movies.
Yeah.
They talk about the comic books that they collect. They, the outsider artists who they're interested in. So yes, I'm very interested in the wide variety of influences from visual culture that inform the leading edge of progressive art.
Yeah, and it's as a newer enthusiast too. It's palpable. Like there's a freshness I feel like that you bring to all of the shows that you do here.
And every once in a while, we get people a little upset by showing a figure who's not necessarily considered a fine artist.
Yeah.
But I think that their contribution to visual culture is really important.
Yeah. Yeah, and I'm sure that I admire that too, the ability to take risks and experiment too for you as like a curator and
a good example
gallery.
Of what we did is we did an exhibition a year or so ago with George Clinton.
Yes,
I've admired so much, and I've just loved George Clinton's visual style, and it has been immensely influential on artists' fashion.
Yeah, no doubt.
An artist who I mentioned who has studied the original Posthuman catalog and who I think is just such an important artist is Josh Klein.
Okay.
And these pieces for me are so meaningful. They are scans of actual people who lost their jobs through outsourcing. It's going to be a lot more through AI.
Yeah.
I think it's really poignant, and that these accountants, actuaries, people who had these stable white-collar jobs, they're an endangered species with what's going on. And so Josh Klein is a really great example of an artist whose work is visually really arresting and strong, but also really has something important to say about what's going on in the world today.
You first see it's like, okay, there's human mannequins in plastic bags. And it's like, you get that first hit, it's like, okay, I get that. But then it's like, wait a minute, let me think about this.
Yeah, because they're beyond mannequins. These are scans of actual people. And I say, maybe of all the works in this show, these seem to affect our visitors the most.
Okay. Ooh, that's cool to hear. Yeah, I mean, I feel it just...
It's hard for art to be shocking and arresting.
Yeah.
And Josh has achieved this with this very simple means.
Especially today, when you think of how desensitized we get to so much stimulation of art and imagery, but it does force you to really stop when you're here in person, and it's unsettling a little bit, in a good way.
Now, something also unsettling are these videos that Josh Klein created of Whitney Houston and Kurt Cobain.
Yeah.
And we wanted to combine the Whitney video with this wonderful portrait by Sam McInnes of Whitney. It's a small portrait, but it's had such an impact. It's been on the cover of Art Forum, the cover of this influential new book, Trophy Lives. And there's a whole mediation of it, because it turns out that Whitney was lip syncing when she sang at this point, and it's a very, very contemporary portrait. And then for this show, Sam painted this great portrait of Elton John, who's so much part of our Los Angeles history. His career first took off at the Troubadour.
Something about it, there's kind of this like hyper-real painting, and I feel like the internet is filled with this kind of imagery, but there's something about the way that he paints these that just is like slightly different, that brings him into the art world.
Yeah, well, there's exaggeration and intensity, I think is really the right word. Sam is a great painter. Look at beautiful abstraction.
Just the theme or the idea of posthuman, what does that mean for you at this point, 30 years later?
Well, standing in front of these aliens, maybe this is a good way to talk about it. This is Mariko Mori. Posthuman started as an exhibition on new figuration.
Yeah.
The working title was The Conceptual Figure.
Okay.
And then I just had this insight as I was doing my morning run around Central Park in 1991 or so.
All great ideas happen on runs.
Posthuman. Yeah. And so this was just at the beginning of plastic surgery, reformatting your body through exercise programs. It was the first time that a sheep was cloned, Dolly the sheep.
Oh yeah.
And so just putting all this together, I began my essay asking, are we the last generation of real humans? So well, I think for a couple generations, we're still our real humans.
Yeah. Right.
But
we got a little time.
But pretty soon, we're going to come to a point where even if cloning of humans is outlawed in the United States, there'll be some clinic in Grenada or something like that where they will clone you, or or maybe you can buy the DNA from your favorite movie star and clone them as your child.
Whoa.
So how are we going to stop this? Somehow artists have a role in sorting all of this out. And so that's really what this is about. It's about the artists confronting probably the biggest challenge to humanity ever. It is, there are horrible challenges with wars.
Sure.
But there's nothing really more challenging than how do you stop somebody from engineering like the perfect baby and implanting artificial intelligence into your brain so that you have some sort of superhuman capabilities or
leveling up.
Maybe you're just going to be able to do this with a pair of eyeglasses. So this is all on the horizon. Maybe it's the next stage in evolution, which is good. Maybe it's disaster that's coming. So
that's the question.
In art about Posthuman, you have to have both sides. You have to have the optimism and then the horror.
Wow, well said.
So something that's relevant to this whole discourse is these early Damien Hurst medicine cabinets.
Big time.
Okay, so why is this in a show about figurative art? Well, this is really getting inside the brain. I think these medicine cabinets by Damien Hurst are so brilliant. And well, this is what people fill their brains with. Prozac. Well, in 1992, that was like the biggest thing. It's really fascinating to see this array of pharmaceuticals that connect with how people lived in the early 90s. If we wanted to do a medicine cabinet now, it would be a different array.
It would be.
But I just think this is really brilliant where Damien has fused pop art, conceptual art, shelving, sculpture, Heinz Steinbach, and he's put together this really original art form, which, of course, people were very skeptical about at the beginning. Well, this really stands up, and I think is amazing.
In this setting, it feels like the perfect show for it to appear in. What does this work mean standing by itself versus what does it mean amidst the figuration, this post-human concept in the room with everything else?
This side, I want to point out an artist who is very important for this exhibition. And that is Pippa Garner. We commissioned this portrait of Pippa Garner for the original Posthuman catalog. And at the time, Pippa was known as Phil Garner. He was a kind of conceptual comedian. I just love this piece. And it's right at the beginning of our visual essay, see? Right here in a kind of bluish, So it's really, just about the first piece in our catalog. And at that point, Phil Garner was not so well known in the art world. Paul McCarthy knew about him and showed me a video clip where he had been on the Johnny Carson show.
Whoa.
Wearing a kind of half suit. But since then, Phil has transitioned to Pippa Garner, and he's been celebrated in the last Made in LA exhibition.
Yeah, yeah.
And in the Whitney Biennial. And this
Wild.
is a recent sculpture, which is amazing.
Yeah.
It's so post-human.
Yeah.
It's so contemporary.
Well, and I think too, I mean, the little I know, of as I've learned more about sculpture, it's like it has all of the strengths of sculpture where it's dimensional, there's negative space, there's lots of different focal points, and it all works together.
Sense of gravity. So, yeah, really happy to have this.
Yeah, this is so cool.
Another very interesting work here is Urs Fischer's candle sculpture. This is actually my favorite of all of Urs Fischer's candle sculptures.
Cool.
The figures are Kembra Fowler, performance artist who's a great friend of mine. We've done many things with Kembra. And this is Spencer Sweeney, great friend of Urs, who has a painting show up now at Gagosian in New York.
Okay.
But also known for having started Santos Party House, which was the most important club in New York in the 2000s.
And so this is made, what is this made of?
So it's wax, it's a candle.
Yeah.
So at some point we will light it and it will melt, and the melting is really amazing. Or showed me a picture where Kembra's hair turns into this black rain. It's incredible.
Whoa. How does it, I mean, is it just like one wick at the top?
Yeah.
That's it?
It takes a while to burn.
I would imagine. It's like one big candle.
Concept is somebody buys it, they light the wick and slowly watch it melt. And the melting, if they do it slowly, can take a year or so.
Yeah.
Then they order up a new candle.
Oh, cool.
Urs keeps the mold with the foundry in Switzerland. And
Okay.
they'll ship a new one.
Sweet.
You have a new candle.
Oh, I love that.
Yeah, so I love the concept of, it's an expansion of the sculptural form.
Almost to invite the owner or whoever, to take part in the experience of changing the sculpture in a sense.
Right.
Yeah.
So you are a participant.
Yeah, you're a participant.
Yeah. The Wishing Well and the Kermit, works by Alex DeCourt, who's one of the most important sculptors his generation. And he's much more than a sculptor. He's co-curating the Roy Lichtenstein retrospective at the Whitney Museum and creating an opera. He's an amazing person. Yeah.
Yeah, we covered his show at Matthew Marks last year with the carpet. And
that was an excellent show.
Yeah, that was an excellent show.
And we have a great painting from Damien Giuliano Villani.
Okay.
It's so post-human. It's the most perfect painting that she could have sent us. So I'm thrilled to have this here. It's completely post-human, about cloning and the perfect body, But also there's a lot of reference to Andy Warhol's Elvis.
Okay, yeah.
So artists are in dialogue with artists of the same generation, previous generations.
Ooh, it's pretty hypnotic. I'm kind of
like, I
get stuck.
I love this painting.
Yeah. Can you take us through the process, Jeffrey, of just how do you, there's a bunch of stuff in here, and it's all really cool stuff. How do you plan or create the idea of placing things and what goes where?
Okay, well, that's an essential question.
Yeah.
So there's a lot of preparation in a show like this.
Yeah.
And maybe spent a year developing it.
Wow.
So to figure out the installation, we do it the old-fashioned way.
Yeah.
We make a large physical model.
Okay.
So we make a big styrofoam wall model.
Yeah.
We do quite large.
Sure.
And we make mini versions of every artwork that's going to be in the show.
Okay.
And we place it around the model.
Yeah.
And we try it out, and so that works have their own space, but then there are little families of works that can relate to each other. Yeah.
So both kind of brain and feeling.
So we worked out the composition in a model.
Okay.
And then we bring all the works here. Yeah. And some of the things that we had going in the model don't quite work once we see the works in the space.
Sure.
We move things around, but we followed the model. Let's say 90%.
Okay. So that's a pretty big tool, pretty big part of it.
Yeah.
Okay.
So we have to look at this famous work of Maurizio Cattelan. It's called We. The two self-portraits of Maurizio in the bed. And there are a lot of references to this. There's a famous photograph of General Idea, of the three artists, original artists and General Idea, in bed together with their clothes on. And I assume Maurizio is thinking of that. And Maurizio's work, he's often referencing previous works of art.
Okay.
Also, just formally, this connects with minimalism and serial art. There is a famous Chris Burden piece with policemen. It's just many different works that he references in this. Yeah. But there's also a lot of humor in his work too. Yeah. Which I really appreciate.
It's a little unsettling, but then funny.
He got it just right with the way the eyes are. And it's a great likeness of him. Yeah. But also, he's Italian. Look how beautifully the suits are tailored.
It's perfectly. Great suit.
The shoes perfectly shine. Yeah. So I think only an Italian would get it down like that. Yeah.
I'll admit this, as a fan of you in the gallery, it's like, I can't help but think of you when I walk in and I see these two impeccably dressed models, figures.
Well, I'm only one of the only people in the art trade left who still wears a coat and tie. Yeah. And respect. So in Los Angeles, of course, things are casual. I go out without a necktie. But people complain. Where's your suit? Where's your tie? Yeah. They want me to stay in character.
You own that character very well.
One of my great friends, Ashley Bickerton, one of the only works we've shown previously, this was in our People show, and I wanted it back. It's the fat body. Yeah. And the first version of this, without the rope, was in the original Posthuman.
It's so interesting, like the Posthuman idea becomes more and more clear, looking at all the different figures, all the different bodies, all the different
this is both futuristic, but also the past, like a Buddha.
Yeah, yeah. There's beauty to it too. I mean, it's like so smooth and sleek, and also kind of just makes you feel the weight of it.
Right. Yeah. So I first met Ashley Bickerton in 1981. Okay. When Sherry Levine had invited me to do a crit at CalArts. Okay. And at CalArts, and the other students said, "You got to meet Ashley. He's our best artist." Yeah. So of course I met Ashley, and he was the best artist at CalArts at that time. Like phenomenal skill to render something, render a figure, represent something with paint or drawing. Yeah. And we were friends since 1981. We came to New York City, we spent a lot of time, and he unfortunately, last couple of years, he got ALS, but kept going and was optimistic to the end, working on his art. Yeah.
What is this constructed out of?
This is resin.
Resin, okay. Wow, I'm so curious, like, what the process of making that is.
Most of the art he made in his studio in Bali.
Okay, interesting.
Yeah, very unusual artistic career. Yeah. Going from CalArts to New York City, and then retreating to Bali, where he created his studio in paradise.
Yeah. Sounds pretty nice.
And this is one of the most iconic works of our time. Yeah. It's Charles Ray's Family Romance. Okay. It's a truly amazing, astonishing work. Yeah. And there's so many issues with sculpture here. And Charlie was here the other day, asked him to talk about it a little bit. He said one of the issues, it's him tackling the problem of how to create a sculptural group, a figurative group. And so there are all these issues that are about the history of sculpture, the nature of sculpture, that he spends years pondering. And spends tremendous amount of effort on each of these details. Yeah. How the hand of one figure joins the hand of another. And Charlie's also very interested in the negative space around sculpture.
Yeah.
And you see these triangular forms and the serial imagery. And he's also referencing minimal and serial art.
Yeah. I think the first thing too that jumps out to me when I saw this is, you know, the children being the same size as the adults, and obviously a clear choice there.
Right. So, you know, issues of scale are so central to sculpture. And so this is something that he's studying here with these figures.
Yeah. Unsettling, but still like captivating.
Exactly.
Like it pushes you away, but then also kind of, you can't help but try and investigate what's going on.
And then also something that's characteristic of Charles Ray, the craft is perfect.
Yeah. Are these similar? Is this resin or is this...
It's like a resin type, but there's an armature underneath. It's a very complex work.
Yeah. And it's like, it's so pristine. It's like the shadows, the lighting. Yeah,
that's right. But you can spend a lot of time concentrating on this. The Jeff Koons Baron Policeman is one of his iconic works.
Yeah.
It's from his Banality series in 1988.
Okay.
This was in the original show.
Okay.
It's the best of Jeff. Has this tension, they've kind of like the happy cartoon aspect, and then this scary tension. Yeah.
It's like, is that bear gonna like rip that whistle away and bite the guy's head off, or, you know?
It's a very intriguing piece.
Yeah, both, again, this mixed emotions that you get stuck wondering what's gonna happen. This almost looks like a carving, but...
It's all wood carving,
solid carving.
Wood.
Wow.
Carved by famous German woodcarvers who do the Passion Play and Oberammergau.
Okay. Admittedly, I think of like wood carving as you're driving to the mountain. There's like a wood carver in their yard that has various animals for sale made out of stumps and logs and stuff, but this is not what I normally associate with a big wood carving.
But Jeff is very interested in that kind of vernacular art. So I took a tour of York, Pennsylvania, and environs where he grew up, and he loves the lawn sculpture, the gazing balls that people put up in their front yard.
Yeah.
His father had an interior decorating shop in York, Pennsylvania.
Okay.
Filled with kitsch items, those sculptures, lamps. So it has Jeff's heritage. And grew up watching people appreciate these items, paying money for them.
Yeah.
And so becoming a major sculptor himself, thinking about the difference between the official sanctioned fine art and then the kind of art that people actually like.
Yeah. Yeah, finding that sweet spot.
Yeah. I'm happy to have this work of Jana Euler here. I think she's one of the great young painters. And this is one of the iconic works of Jeff Wall, a really great artist who was in the original show.
Yeah.
This is called The Giant. People know this work from reproduction and assume it's gigantic.
Yeah.
No, it doesn't need to be.
Yeah. Can it be displayed at different sizes, or?
No, this is the work.
This is the work, yeah. Okay.
See, this is the Vancouver Library.
Okay.
And this is all set up with all these figures here.
Yeah. When was this made? This is older?
This is from the early 90s.
Okay. Yeah, I'm so curious how then, you know, you see it today, it's like, oh yeah, you would manipulate it on a computer and could pull it off, but I'm curious the tools that were used.
Yeah, so the tools that make something like this much easier,
didn't he?
You know, he had to do this all by hand with, actually a real setup. And
that's cool.
And I think he still does it that way.
Yeah, okay.
This is one of the great works of Mike Kelly, Brown Star.
Yeah.
And this was in the original show.
Okay. Is it meant to sort of, navigate through, or?
Well, yeah, you can.
Yeah. Maybe while there's no one else in the gallery. And
a lot of Mike Kelly's work comes out of these strong childhood memories.
Yeah.
Some
good, some bad.
Traumatic memories, some like humorous memories. Yeah, it's one of the great works of Mike Kelly.
Did he sew these together? Are they sewn kind of like?
Yes.
Yeah. Yeah, again, makes you think about the figuration and what's within all these different bodies and sculptures. Very cool.
And there's a scatological aspect of this, which people can see. I won't go into depth about.
Yeah. Right.
And great work of Robert Gober. This is Wangechi Mutu, Hugh Hayden.
Oh yeah, okay.
And we have the new body of work of Cindy Sherman.
Okay.
Really lucky to have these works here.
Yeah.
And this is the infamous Paul McCarthy Garden.
Yeah.
And this is a work that changed the course of contemporary art.
Really?
It introduced this concept of performance and sculpture together in one work.
I know, I associate this with him now, but was this early in his kind of big world?
Well, this was,
Forest?
I'd say, a breakthrough. This is from 1991.
Okay.
It was in this very influential exhibition at MoCA,
Okay.
Helter Skelter. A lot of our audience wasn't born yet when this was first shown. And this is an example of one of the seminal works here that audience today only knows through photographs or book covers. So to actually see it, it's really special.
Does it take a lot to bring something like this out of storage?
Oh, yes.
Yeah.
This is, so Paul and his team worked for a couple of weeks installing it with us, getting everything perfect.
Yeah, it fits just right inside the building.
It's uncanny. We didn't have to alter it at all. But these trees clear the skylights by a matter of an inch.
Yeah, wow. Just lucked out.
We were, the space has very tall ceilings here, but this was actually made for a space with even taller ceilings.
There's humor, but there's also kind of darkness to it.
Yes, this is,
classic Paul.
So when this was first shown at MoCA, as I turned the corner, because it wasn't installed in a way where you saw it head on.
Yeah.
You would have heard the noise, and I heard people gasping.
Yeah.
What? I'd never heard this in a museum. Then I must have gasped myself. It was so shocking to see.
Yeah.
People aren't gasping now. Somehow art, whether advanced or deteriorated, to encompass works like this.
Yeah, I'm sure that would have been, in a museum setting, a little different. A lot different.
Yeah. The Clown Scratch
Yeah.
work by Anna Imhoff,
Yeah.
who's one of my favorite artists.
Yeah.
And Anna lives in both Los Angeles and Berlin.
Yeah.
Her work is really tough and powerful.
Really tough.
I
Yeah.
really love her work.
But it's cool. I mean, from what I've followed her a little bit, yeah.
Over on the other side is these wonderful Adam and Eve works that are inspired by a German Renaissance sculptor. And then John Curran, married to Rachel, has these works here. And John works very slowly, so there was no new work available. But John was so generous, he said, well, come over to my house.
Yeah.
Take anything you want from off my walls.
Nice.
So we chose these three paintings that fit the Posthuman theme very
definitely
well.
fit the Posthuman.
The one on the right is really outrageous. Actually, I've shown that before in one of our other projects.
Again, tension and humor.
Yeah, that's sort of
got it.
Isn't so much of these powerful works have a tension between male and female, between two figures confronting each other, or in this case, what is actually happening, what people are thinking.
Yeah, the anatomy a little bit familiar, but not. Yeah.
This is so funny.
Yeah, it's great.
It's an amazing painting. And it's kind of a time capsule of this kind of like 1950s, early 1960s character. People don't look like that anymore.
No, yeah.
But this is very contemporary with the computer.
And the tie, you got the tie.
Chris Cunningham.
Okay.
Who was my favorite music video director.
Oh, yes,
into the 90s.
Whoa.
Yeah, look at that.
Whoa.
Get Chris to show his work in the gallery context, and we finally connected with him at the right time.
Whoa. This was made more recently, or?
Yeah, this is new work.
Okay. It's wild. And again, pretty right on the nose with the Posthuman.
That's right. It's very handmade. So it's done with a number of programs of image making software.
Yeah.
Live model.
Sure.
It starts with his girlfriend being the live model for this.
Huh. Super hypnotic. Like you just kind of like.
It is. So
whoa.
what I see is visitors to the show, we always have a crowd of half dozen people standing in front of this, completely mesmerized.
Yeah, I bet that's got to be fun to kind of, as the mastermind, kind of watch and see how people react and just where the flow goes within the space and the different pieces.
I suppose it's very funny, and I've come and said, oh, I know people who look like this. You know? So
right.
It's an exaggerated version of way, there's a whole set of people who you see walking down Rodeo Drive.
Yeah. It becomes body modification more than like cosmetic surgery.
Yeah.
I don't know if, same kind of thing, but.
All the pills that people take. Yeah.
And it's really, the line blurs between like, okay, what's real and what's fake and what's computer generated and what's, you can tell like some of it, I think, is physical prosthetic or, actual
He's using
apparatus.
a mixture of techniques.